In the early 20th century, a man in Japan was relentlessly working on an invention that would revolutionize the textile industry. His name was Sakichi Toyoda, the son of a poor carpenter who had no formal education. Despite facing repeated failures, Toyoda believed he could build something that would change the world. And he did. He created the Type G automatic loom, a machine that was faster, more efficient, and could stop itself when a thread broke, reducing waste and improving quality. In 1929, Toyota made the bold decision to sell the patent for his groundbreaking loom to a British company, Platt Brothers, for the then staggering sum of 100,000 euros. Many people thought Toyota was making a mistake. Why give up control of such a revolutionary invention? But Toyota had a bigger vision in mind. He wasn't just thinking about his loom or the textile industry. He was thinking about the future of his company and the future of Japan. The money from the patent sale allowed his son, Kichiro Toyoda, to pursue something even more ambitious, building automobiles. And from that bold decision, Toyota Motor Corporation was born. Toyota's leadership teaches us a powerful lesson about thinking long-term, taking risks, and believing in a vision that's bigger than yourselves. He understood that sometimes leadership means giving up something valuable today in order to build something even greater tomorrow. With that, welcome back to Leaders, a podcast dedicated to exploring the best leaders this world has ever seen. And on episode 39, we will cover Sakichi Toyoda, the moniker of father of Japanese Industrial Revolution, and the leadership story and principles of Toyota, the largest automobile manufacturer in the world, producing about 10 million vehicles per year. So let's dive into Toyota and what sort of principles and lean methodology via the manufacturing background that he has helped influence to carve out this Toyota way. We can draw parallels here to a very similar sort of framework that we studied with GE back on episode 3 with Jack Welch and the GE way, and there's many parallels there that frame into the Toyota way. One of these kind of core principles or concepts that he helped develop was the concept of 5 whys. So when a problem occurs, ask why 5 times to try to find the source of the problem. Then put it into place something to prevent the problem from occurring. That's taught today and used as part of applying lean methodologies to solve problems, improve quality, and reduce costs. So definitely within the vein of manufacturing, but can be applied to frankly, almost any discipline of having that framework. And these 5 ways helped to also frame out what is the Toyota way. So to express our corporate philosophy and thoroughly impress this upon all employees, the top management of Toyota companies assembled the Toyota precepts to clearly crystallize the spirit of its founder, Sakichi Toyoda. And these 5 are: always be faithful to your duties, thereby contributing to the company and to the overall good. Always be studious and creative, striving to stay ahead of the times. 3, always be practical and avoid frivolousness. 4, always strive to build a home-like atmosphere at work that is warm and friendly. And then 5, and finally, always have respect for spiritual matters and remember to be grateful at all times. And before we go more into Toyota Way and kind of some of the examples and foundations that help frame this out, I think a interesting compare and contrast would be to what is deemed as kind of conventional leadership, or some of maybe the leadership principles that most people know of and see within textbooks and academic studies and such, and to contrast that with how the Toyota Way leadership thinks about that. So these leadership developments that they make internally, they invest a heavy amount into their own employees and to teach these leadership principles. And so the first stage of that they call self-development, and that's learning true north values through repeated immersion cycles. And so, under the capability is the leadership element, and the conventional leadership would be to say a magnetic quality or charisma is what makes people follow, versus the Toyota way leadership says that natural leaders see possibilities for improvement in self and others and instinctively harmonize with Toyota values. The process sort of learning and growing within self-development as well. So conventional leadership would say learn from a mentor and or copy a successful style within the quote-unquote old boys club. And Toyota way leadership says go to the Gemba. So there will be some Japanese terms here that they kind of reference that we will go more into detail with. But the Gemba in this case says where the work is. So to deeply understand the actual situation and take on increasingly challenging goals under a mentor's guidance. So that was for stage 1, self-development. Stage 2 is more about coach and develop others, helping others kind of self-develop. So in terms of developing the next generation of leaders, conventional leadership principles would say results-oriented, so a laser focus basically on delivering specific results and driving subordinates with rewards and punishments to help them achieve those results. The Toyota way frame of leadership to develop next generation leaders says to be more of a process-oriented result, and so learning to see strengths and weaknesses in others, how to create situations for growing, and how to minimally intervene at teaching moments for maximum impact, developing people in the right way, and the results will follow. To then coach and develop others, traditionally, sponsors select similar successors, develop favorites, or hire proven heroes from outside. So we've seen that within some of these leaders that we've studied. They will kind of choose their successor to be someone of the same sort of flavor as them, or kind of the same leadership style, or they kind of have it already picked out as their favorite internally to kind of then be the successor of the company. Versus the Toyota way says take responsibility for helping people advance through the self-development learning cycle. Stage 3 then is to support daily Kaizen. So standards, targets, visual management, daily Kaizen. So conventional leadership to achieve goals would be to drive to quantify the business, unit or process performance, and hold key individuals accountable. The Toyota way, on the other hand, actually says learn how to promote leadership learning several levels down through standards, targets, and visual management. And stage 4 is finally to create a vision and align goals, so vertical and horizontal alignment towards the true north values. And so to develop that vision and plan, typically in a conventional leadership space and company, you're creating and selling a dramatic vision and measurable plan. Versus in the Toyota way leadership standpoint, you're participating in a collaborative process to get agreement and align goals and the means to achieve those goals. And then setting and aligning those goals and plans for achievement. Toyota says to initiate and sustain continuous improvement through visual management of goals, focus on problem solving and developing people. And finally, within aligning those goals and planning for achievement, traditional leadership would say drive goals with metrics, aggressive bottom-up accountability to metrics, identifying high and low performers, and rewarding appropriately. So overall, another key point here is that sort of conventional leadership, or maybe more Americanized kind of definition of leadership, they tend to think of leadership as a solo endeavor. We use the word leader to refer to people who stand out from the crowd because of personality, charisma, sometimes megalomania. Examples of leaders in popular and business literature tend to be a heroic person, man or woman, who stands against the tide, the solo visionary, or the inspirational speech maker with thousands of people following him or her. And this again contrasts itself with the foundations of the Toyota way and what we have described as far as how they develop their leaders, and it definitely is not a solo effort by any means. And so one of the foundations that we want to kind of double click on here is the lean practice, or Genshi Gembutsu, or go and see. So that is the principle that should be decisions should be made whenever possible by those at the work site who have an intimate knowledge of what is happening and what potential solutions to any problem or work. As leaders move up the ladder from the shop floor to executive positions, there is still extreme emphasis on spending time at the gemba, the work site, or shop floor so that the leaders have a grasp of the actual situation. And we've seen this in previous episodes of really emphasizing from the leader's standpoint and the CEO standpoint that they are in the details. That is the Zuckerberg, the Elon Musk, of being kind of in the details, being on the floor, seeing what's happening is going to end up being the most successful kind of leadership style in their minds. We've also seen a contrasting way of that, of kind of hiring the best people and really being a little bit more hands-off from a leadership style standpoint. So the Genshi Gabutsu, go and see actual situation, means imagining what you are observing is your own job rather than somebody else's problem, and making efforts to improve it. Job titles are unimportant. In the end, the people who know the gemba, where the actual work is done, are the most respected. And that was a quote from, in 2009, Akio Toyoda, the president of Toyota Motor Corporation. You can see from Sakichi, and his initial way of thinking about it is very similar and has kind of stood the test of time with the leaders within Toyota, because they are instilling this heavy emphasis on teaching their leadership principles to their employees. The Toyota way emphasizes that the further from the gemba decisions are made, the poorer the decisions are made, and that proposition was proved. The 5 values that really define the Toyota way are the spirit of challenge, kaizen, Genshi Gabutsu, we just described, teamwork, and respect. And as the Toyota way puts it, we accept challenges with the creative spirit and the courage to realize our own dreams without losing drive or energy. One could argue that the spirit of challenge is the core value that energizes leaders and associates in Toyota to strive for perfection. As we will see, it is through taking on successively greater challenges and reflecting at each step that Toyota leaders develop themselves. Another core sort of tenet of that Toyota way is always driving to the root cause of the problem. And in some cases where within the book that leaned heavily on this episode for, kind of describing the lean way of leadership for Toyota, they say to really never blame customers within the challenges that they had that we will go into more in that section, but never blame customers, government, or partners such as dealers or suppliers. Apologize to customers for any pain or inconvenience that they suffered. Do not give responses to the public that appear defensive. Work diligently to identify and solve any real problems. And self-development more here before we kind of go more into depth on thoughts on leadership at Toyota. Self-development is the key indispensable trait of leaders. Only those who demonstrate a consistent devotion to self-development will acquire the skills and fill the gaps in their own capabilities to become the effective leaders that Toyota requires to maintain excellence. In this sense, Toyota doesn't believe that leadership can be taught. It can only be learned by those who are willing to self-develop. It is therefore critical to allow self-development and reliably identify it among potential and existing leaders. Toyota's approach to allowing for and identifying self-development is built into its approach to teaching and learning. So that was really some kind of core principles on the Toyota way and how they view conventional leadership versus the Toyota way leadership. More thoughts just on generally leadership here at Toyota. So they say at Toyota that every leader is a teacher developing the next generation of leaders. This is their most important job. Back to episode 1, Jim Senegal, famously from Costco, said that 90% of what the time spent for a leader would be to teach and coach. And so Toyota has a very similar frame here of the leaders being teachers and developing that next generation of leaders. The job of the leader also is not to put them in positions to fail, but to put them in challenging positions where they must work hard to succeed and still see how they could have been even better. Our goal is for every Toyota team member, from the worker on the production floor to our most senior execs, to be working to continuously improve themselves. And a former chairman of Toyota, Sakichi Toyoda, quoted saying, "Senior management is simply a flag bearer when a business decision is made. It is of no use unless others follow the flag." Toyota's perspectives on leadership and how to develop leaders doesn't offer any sort of quick fixes. Toyota develops leaders slowly and painstakingly over many years because it believes that slow and steady is the only way to win the leadership race. And more on, I guess, this sort of manufacturing centered lean approach to leadership. So there are many practitioners of Lean Six Sigma at Toyota, and they instill that within their manufacturing of the cars and such. And so these people have arrived at is that sustaining improvements requires a combination of top leadership commitment and a culture of continuous improvement. Continuous improvement being the Kaizen principle referenced before. We have to change the culture from one in which people simply do their job in their own function to make their own numbers look good, a vertical focus, to one in which people are focused horizontally on the customer and on proving value streams that deliver value across functions. Production system created in the process of Sakichi's continual improvement of the loom, stopping when there is a problem and highlighting out of standard conditions so that errors are not carried to the next stage of production. So this loom and textile developed then are still being used within a manufacturing principle within the autos that they are generating. Toyota Sakichi was a big fan of Samuel Smiles' book Self-Help, for which documented how highly successful people, including great inventors, made breakthroughs not simply through a single brilliant inspiration, but through hard work, intensive focus, trial and error, perseverance, and getting their hands dirty. More than anything else, Toyota valued hands-on knowledge and stepping up to challenges. Though the scale was obviously different, Toyota has never faced challenges more extreme than those that were dealt during his tenure, be it developing the first looms from scratch with no capital or surviving World War II. So you see the book, the influence that potential either mentors or literature or things that they kind of become read and be inspired by are ones that then shape their leadership principles. So in this case, that definitely had an influence within him. So in Japan, Toyota developed leaders from within, identifying employees with leadership potentially early in their careers and presenting them with challenges that would allow them to be hired for management positions. And then they also, beyond the fundamentals in America, American leaders needed to have open minds. Toyota was expressly looking for people who are willing to question some very basic assumptions about how to manage, how to prioritize problems, and the importance of customers. So out of a lot of these great ideas from a Toyota way, Toyota leadership standpoint, there also were a lot of different challenges that helped shape and impart a lot of different valuable lessons about leadership that Sakichi Toyoda encountered. So one thing to start off just with his background is that he lacked a lot of the formal education, early skepticism. So the importance really of a vision and self-belief, he had to maintain a really strong belief in his vision. Leader must have kind of that clear vision and confidence in their goals, especially in the face of doubt. And he did also have initial failures with his loom prototypes. So he really had to embrace failure and persist as part of the growth. So his early designs often failed due to technical flaws. He viewed those failures as opportunities to learn and improve. Persistence included refining designs, ultimately leading to the creation of a highly successful loom. And that persistence demonstrated that continuous improvement is critical to long-term success. He faced a lot of different financial difficulties, struggles for investment, effective leaders really willing to take calculated risks, but they must do so prudently. He demonstrated that a leader must have a ability to make hard decisions regarding resources, especially when pursuing groundbreaking innovations. In addition to that, selling the loom and patent licensing. So long-term thinking is sacrificing for greater goals. So he sold the patent for the Type G automatic loom, reference in the intro story, to Platt Brothers. Some criticized him for giving away valuable IP. However, he recognized that the move would then provide the necessary capital to fund his future, including the entry into automobile industry. So in this case, he's thinking beyond kind of immediate rewards and focusing on long-term benefits, which is another leadership lesson as part of kind of these challenges or decisions that he made. So although he dreamt of really entering the automotive industry, he didn't really see that vision realized in his lifetime, but he entrusted the mission to his son, Kichiro, who later founded Toyota, and Sakichi's confidence in his son's ability to carry that family's innovative spirit forward was key to their later success. They know when to delegate great leaders and trust others, and so this was a lot of trust and responsibility kind of on his son to continue to build out that legacy and vision that he had created. And within the final section here, as we wrap up failures and challenges, the mentors and heroes. So the first one being his father, Sakichi Toyoda. So his role was that his father was a poor carpenter, and while he wasn't an inventor or an industrialist, his craftsmanship influenced his early understanding of tools and mechanics. His exposure to carpentry as a child nurtured his curiosity about machines and how things worked. So he developed an appreciation for manual labor, value of hands-on work, I think, from his time with his father. This grounded him in the idea that technology should solve practical problems and improve quality of life. Thomas Edison did have an influence on him. Though they never met, he was deeply inspired by that, the inventor Edison. He was fascinated by his prolific output and innovations, which represented the cutting edge of technology during his lifetime. He was a global symbol of invention and entrepreneurship. He famously said, "Genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration," and that deeply resonated with Sakichi. Toyota adopted a similar attitude, especially during his many failed attempts to create that automatic loom. He did have lots of influence from generally Buddhist and Confucian philosophies. So Japanese culture was deeply kind of influenced by this thought, shaping his worldview and leadership style. That philosophy emphasized hard work, continuous self-improvement, and the importance of contributing to society. The Japanese inventor and entrepreneur Ichi Shibusawa, so he lived from 1840 to 1931, and he was known as the father of Japanese capitalism and was a key figure in modernizing Japan's economy. No direct, per se, mentorship link there, but his efforts to blend Western industrial practices with Japanese values greatly influenced the business climate that Toyota ended up operating in. So bridging those traditional values with modern innovation, he followed that approach and like the principles of scientific management with the distinctly Japanese concepts of kaizen and respect for workers. His mother also had an influence on him. Tammy Toyoda was a major influence in shaping his empathy and desire to create something meaningful. Observing his mother's hardships in spinning and weaving cloth by hand inspired him to improve the efficiency of textile work. In addition, Japanese nationalism and the Meiji Restoration, so that was in 1868 and was a time of rapid modernization and industrialization in Japan. Japan's leaders encouraged innovation, self-reliance, and the adoption of Western technologies to build the country's economy. Sakichi grew up during this period and was deeply influenced by the national drive to make Japan competitive on the global stage. So national pride and contributing to that country's progress was an influence on him as well. And then finally, his son, Kichiro. So though he was a father and mentor figure to him, his son's passion for automobiles and vision for the future influenced him in his later years. And then Kichiro ended up carrying on that spirit of innovation and persistence, founding Toyota Motor Corporation after his father's death. And he really trusted in that next generation and nurturing that innovation within him. So that wraps up episode 39 on Sakichi Toyoda, whose son Kichiro ended up founding Toyota Motor Corporation, one of the largest automobile manufacturers in the world today, and certainly a solid example of kind of setting out leadership principles from the start and having those carry through to see them still to this day being adopted. And that certainly cements a great legacy on, in this case, the founder and the leaders that helped develop that, and developing generations of leaders that continue to carry that on throughout all these different evolutions of technology, of change within the industry, within that company. And so definitely to be studied here, obviously from a manufacturing perspective, but a lot of these principles of continuous improvement and going and seeing and being within the work helps succeed as a leader. And so those could be carried over to many other businesses and companies. So thanks for listening to episode 39, and we will be back shortly for episode 40.